All right. Good morning, everyone. We are live. We are just going to give it a minute here to get going. Let's see. We'll wait for everybody to log on, and then we will we'll get moving. Okay. All righty. We'll give it one more minute. And then we will begin. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joel Porter. I'm the Initiatives Manager with the Green Hydrogen Coalition, and I'm the main point of contact for our organization, this Workstream. I'd like to first give a special welcome to anyone who is new to our work and thank everyone who's able to join us today. As the title slide indicates, we're here to launch the next initiative in the GHC's HyBuild North America platform. One we hope will make the transition to hydrogen a little bit easier. Next slide, please. There we go. Through the speakers today, you'll hear about the work we've done to get us to this point. You'll hear from a partner at a nationally recognized law firm who led us through a similar process. In a case, from a similar process, you will hear from a CEO who has gone through the process of standing up a major hydrogen project, ACES project in Delta, Utah, from an international project manager, an expert in risk management, and from a fellow traveler with a like-minded organization that has convened companies who are leading the way to address decarbonization. Next slide, please. We are recording our presentation today, and both the slides and recording will be available after the webinar. Additionally, links should be live in this presentation. So if you should be able to click directly on the screen. If not, please feel free to request in the question box, the chat box for those links if you'd like to explore anything further. Additionally, if you have questions throughout the program, please use those chat boxes, the question box, to pose those questions throughout the panel today, and we'll address all of them at the conclusion of the program. Next slide, please. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our first speaker, the founder and president of the Green Hydrogen Coalition, Janice Lynn. Janice?
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
Thank you. And welcome, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Green Hydrogen Coalition's HyBuild North America Contracts Workstream. This is our latest initiative. I'd like to first do a quick intro for those of you who are new to the GHC, provide a little overview of what we do, why I founded the GHC. If you could go to the next slide, please. The purpose of the Green Hydrogen Coalition is to really up our game in accelerating a clean energy transition with green hydrogen. Our thesis about how to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels is to scale an alternative fuel. And the way to do that is by simultaneously scaling supply and demand. Next slide, please. I founded the GHC in the fall of 2019. This would not have been possible without the generous donations of all of you, our sponsors. If you go to the next, our sponsor slide, thank you. We also are really grateful to our foundation funders as well. Next slide, please. The ecosystem that we've pulled together has been instrumental in shaping the GHC's work. And our work, summarized briefly, can fit into our core work, three main areas. Of course, education as an educational nonprofit. We have lots and lots of resources on our website. I encourage everyone to check it out. Webinars, the guidebook. Secondly, we're all about coalition building and building alignment across all stakeholders around landmark, key sort of scalable green hydrogen infrastructure projects. We're going to be hearing a lot more about this one. This is one of my favorite projects, the Intermountain Power Project. We're going to hear a lot about that from Paul Browning in a minute. And finally, the Green Hydrogen Coalition engages in the necessary market design and regulatory innovation to ensure that we have the right legal and regulatory framework to build and accelerate a robust green hydrogen ecosystem as fast as possible. I'll note that the GHC supports a very broad definition of green hydrogen. Of course, we support carbon intensity, making sure that's as low as possible, but we think of green hydrogen as any pathway that does not involve fossil fuels. So we are pathway neutral and encouraging of a lot of innovation on all those pathways. Next slide, please. In addition to our core work, we have 3 key initiatives that are building momentum for a scaled green hydrogen economy and helping to accelerate large-scale commercial deployment. That's how we will measure our success, is the degree to which all of you are actually realizing new projects at scale in the world today. The first initiative on the left, we founded this in early 2020, is the Western Green Hydrogen Initiative. It's a collaboration between the GHC, the National Association of State Energy Officials, and the Western Interstate Energy Board. What this is, it's a collaboration to accelerate the development of regional green hydrogen infrastructure and also to accelerate best practices that support a rapid green hydrogen ecosystem development, especially around accelerating needed infrastructure. Secondly, in the middle, which is what we're going to talk about today, is our HyBuild North America initiative. This is a platform geared towards accelerating green hydrogen hubs at scale. This was started before the DOE announced its first shot, and we're super pleased about the Biden administration and the DOE's leadership to really, through the hub applications and the IRA, sort of jet power progress all over the country. Over the last 4 years, we've architected 2 hubs at scale, and that is in Southern California. That was called HyBuild Los Angeles. Lots of information about that effort on our website. And another hub more recently, HyBuild Carolinas. The final report for that will be coming out soon. Final initiative is our consumer outreach initiative. This is intended to provide accessible, objective information to the broader public. And this effort is still under development and also will be released this fall. More to come on that. Next slide. Additionally, we work closely with Stratagen to convene what I believe is now the largest green hydrogen conference in North America, focused on creating market momentum and accelerating progress. We're super pleased to announce a slate of amazing speakers this year. This year's event was specifically timed to be on the heels of the DOE hub announcement, which is expected this fall. Our goal is to accelerate regional collaboration to stand up that national hydrogen strategy as quickly as possible. Next slide. Okay, thank you, sponsors. Let's go on to the next one. Our Catalyst sponsors. If you're interested to learn more about that program, please reach out. We got lots of information. It's the Catalyst H2 website. Okay, I want to transition to the next slide to talk about HyBuild North America. So for those of you who are new, this platform was inspired by Thierry Lepierre. Thierry will be at Catalyst to speak about his experience developing one of Europe's largest green hydrogen hubs at scale called HyBuild Asturias. Thierry kicked off HyBuild Asturias with an idea that the way to accelerate a green hydrogen economy is to begin with multi-sectoral off-takers, aggregate demand, and once you have visibility into that aggregated demand, you can then start planning for very large-scale production and, importantly, the needed transport and storage infrastructure to connect production with end users. What we did is replicated that approach here in North America, again, starting with Southern California and I'm going to share with you some of those results in a very, very high level fashion. There is a 100-page plus report that details all of this available on our website. Next slide. The reason we wanted to focus on this platform and accelerate a green hydrogen economy is, again, to make an alternative fuel supply available, targeting especially those sectors that are hard to electrify, sectors such as maritime shipping, aviation, and clean, firm, dispatchable power for use in seasonal and very long duration energy storage in the power sector. And what we did find, if you go to the next slide, is indeed, using commercially available technologies today, it is entirely doable. This is a high-level summary of the findings for HyBuild Los Angeles by 2030. It's a scaled green hydrogen hub that achieves $2.05 per kilogram delivered, and that even includes the cost of the wastewater treatment. That's an end-to-end system plan, $2.05 delivered at the Port of LA. When the federal government enacted the IRA, that actually drops the cost to under $1 delivered. This is very exciting because we all know that a kilogram of hydrogen is approximately equivalent to the same energy content as a gallon of diesel. Imagine what is possible once that fuel supply is there and available at that price. We will have massive adoption. Another key finding I wanted to share with you is that this low delivered cost is only possible with a 100% green hydrogen pipeline delivery and connection of that delivery system to underground geologic salt dome formation to balance the seasonal demand throughout the year. Next slide. We also did the same study in the Carolinas. Again, this little higher cost you can see in the upper right-hand corner. The cost is a little higher. We looked at only local electrolytic pathways from wind and solar. The resource there is not quite as fabulous as in the Southwest US, but still $1.49 delivered post PTC is pretty darn exciting. What we also found in talking to many of you and many of the buyers who are on the call today is that this vision, while very exciting, it's still in 2030, it's in the out years. So the question is, how do you get started? And that's where I want to turn to HyBuild North America and this contracts workstream. Next slide. What we found is that to get started, success critically depends on enabling off-takers, scalable off-takers, to sign precedent contracts. These are precedent contracts before the hydrogen pipeline is built, likely involving book and claim. Sign precedent contracts to be the anchor tenant so we can start aggregating other demand and really start to create the value and work on converting all those fossil fuels to a zero carbon, cleaner alternative like hydrogen, and then deliver the amazing benefits to communities. Significant air quality benefits. I recommend you check out the presentation and the report for what those could mean for communities in Southern California. That's what brings us to the contracts workstream. Next slide. And that's the next segment is I want to give everybody a quick overview of what we have in mind. Because as we know, in the early stages of any new clean energy market, nobody's done this before. It's hard. We don't have standard contracts. We don't have, in fact, the use cases are still being sorted out. The use cases are influenced by the ownership structure. There's many, many business models. And one of the exciting things about hydrogen is it touches so many sectors. Next slide. So what is the contracts workstream all about? If you go to slide 18, one more. Okay, that's fine. I think we're missing one about the height. I'll just speak to it. Let me start with this slide since we have it on the screen. In the first phase of HyBuild Los Angeles, we had a contracts workstream. It was very early. This was even before the DOE announced its hydrogen Earthshot. And we said, what would be, when we think of this scaled green hydrogen economy and enabling off-takers to purchase green hydrogen at scale, what would the contract structure even look like? Now, this is a pretty complicated map. I won't go into it in detail, but suffice to say that this was a hydrogen purchase agreement that envisioned a producer, possibly a renewable power contractor, lenders, investors, you know, a separate EPC contract. This was just one instance, and it was early, and we said, wow, this is actually pretty complicated. And it really depends on the use case, the ownership model, and there are many, many choices there. Now we realize since this high-level deal structure was formed in HyBuild LA like circa 2020, a lot has happened since then. That's why we want to focus on the contracts workstream. And here our goal is to engage with potential green hydrogen buyers, scalable green hydrogen buyers across different sectors to think about what are the use cases that are most interesting to you, that you're most excited about. We need to prioritize them. Then, using the platform of the HyBuild North America, our convening platform, to work across a diverse group of stakeholders, engineering firms, permitting, legal, investment, both debt and equity, insurance. Basically, with this diverse group of stakeholders, we can then identify the issues, requirements, any regionally specific considerations, and importantly, to flag the underlying risks that need to be thought about and worked through to underpin future green hydrogen procurement at scale. So this involves all of you, everybody in the ecosystem, and at the epicenter are our buyers, industry participants, and we've recruited an amazing round of advisors to support this effort. If you go to the next slide, Vicki. I'd love to take this time to introduce our co-lead for this effort, and that is Tony Toronto. Thank you, Tony, for coming on screen. Tony is a dear friend and he and his firm have been tremendous contributors to the HyBuild North America effort, literally from the beginning, starting with Los Angeles. What's been amazing about working with Tony and the Shepard Mullen team is their expertise in literally every aspect of the green hydrogen ecosystem and what it will take to, from an environmental standpoint, a contracting standpoint, a transactional standpoint, and investment standpoint. So thank you, Tony, for your support over these years, and thank you for co-leading this effort. Just also by way of introduction, Tony is a partner in Shepard Mullen's real estate, corporate, and finance practice based out of San Diego. And he'll tell you more about his firm, but he is also importantly the clean tech leader for Shepard Mullen nationally. Thank you, and Tony, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Janice, for that very nice introduction. And thank you all for joining us here today. As Janice said, my name is Tony Toronto, and I'm a partner at Shepard Mullen. As you can see here on the screen, Shepard Mullen is a rather large firm. We're a large national and in fact international firm, and we have about 1,100 lawyers spread across the United States and in 4 international offices. Most of our attorneys, however, are here in the United States. But something to speak to here that's particularly near and dear to my heart is our energy infrastructure and project finance team. So of those 1,100 lawyers, over 90 of them are on our energy infrastructure and project finance team, which is to say this is a very, very, very important practice for us. And in fact, it's an area where we have built, we're grateful to say, a national reputation and something that we are continuing to double down, triple down, and grow. And it's because we see this as so important for our clients. We see this so important for industry. We see it so important, frankly, for America, and so central to the practice of law as well. But this is an area where we've built this expertise. What we have in that team that's over 90 lawyers is actually over 60 of those that are full-time, all day, every day. All they do is energy. We do this for a large number of the largest and most sophisticated clients in the United States, and we have a very full service practice about this, nationally recognized as well. And you can click on this little icon if you want to find out, or take an image of that if you want to find out more about our practice. Next slide, please. So our roots here is green hydrogen is relatively new as a sector. We've been at it, as Janice said from the get-go. We've been very involved with the GHC and HyBuild Los Angeles, and as Janice described, this was helping to build a consortium approach, taking a consortium approach to how to build a green hydrogen hub in Southern California. There, we were very much involved with kind of the architecture of the legal arrangements that would be involved in that kind of organizational chart that Janice put up on the screen before. And we covered, from a legal perspective, 3 primary areas. One of them was dealing with offtake, the other was dealing with EPC, and another was dealing with regulatory matters. There are obviously a wide range of different types of issues that come up there as well. So coming out of that, one of the things we also knew and realized was that with the growth and prospects for green hydrogen, there was just a very complex legal landscape as well to try and navigate and figure out. And in that respect, we produced something that we thought would be helpful for all of you and for the industry, and that was a readiness assessment in particular. So again, clicking on this particular icon, you can see on your screen, what we did was we took a readiness assessment that Sandia National Laboratories did relating to the readiness of federal regulation for green hydrogen. And we took that kind of template and we applied it for California and for Southern California in particular. And so if you click here, you will see that we assess state and local laws across industries and across agencies and across different types of law as well to try and identify what was ready for green hydrogen, what required further modification, how to move that forward. And so you could see that for yourself. But it shows a deep dive into what's necessary to jumpstart and to help accelerate green hydrogen development. We've also been involved in pursuing federal hub financing. And in particular, we've actually been, one of the ways in which we've been involved is we actually assisted with one state's drafting of enabling legislation to enable it to apply for federal green hydrogen funding. And we've also been involved, as you can see in the lower right, on a variety of green hydrogen projects at various scales. We've been involved at the hub scale, we've been involved at the utility scale, we've been involved at the commercial scale, and lots of different types of substantive areas. Some of it's corporate, some of it's offtake, EPC, regulatory, and even antitrust. So this just gives you a sense of the number of different types of things that are involved and the number of different types of applications that folks out in the industry are working through to try and advance green hydrogen. And that really brings us to where we are today with this work stream. Next slide, please. So unlike where we were with HyBuild LA, where we were focused on a hub in Southern California, what we want to do here is make sure that we're focused on helping to understand the key contractual issues that are important to you in this audience. And in that respect, what we're intending to do is approach this whole work stream quite differently than how HyBuild LA was approached. It'll start with what I'll call essentially a discovery phase. So this is from September 18th to November 6th. We will be conducting a series of 30-minute interviews facilitated by the Green Hydrogen Coalition, so setting up interviews with key stakeholders, and then we'll be using those interviews on a no-name basis, or the information on those, but developing an understanding based on those of what the key use cases are that are relevant for this audience. Now that's really important because if on one of the slides before that Janice presented, she talked about the range of different industries. If you're talking about a trucking or an industrial application, that can be quite different than what you need for an agricultural one or for the generation of utility scale power. So the needs of these different use cases vary substantially. And so what we want to do is identify key use cases, up to 4, it could be less, that are most important to this audience. Any one particular case may be the most important to you, and so we understand that there are different needs, and so we'll have different use cases that develop. Once those have been identified, then between October 23rd and November 20th, what we'll be doing is convening working groups. We'll be inviting, anyone can participate in the working group for any one particular use case, but we also will have identified folks that might be interested in a particular use case, perhaps more than another, and we hope they will join and participate. The idea here is not to develop, for example, a sample offtake agreement. That would not be practical to do, and particularly with this kind of audience and setting. The amount of complexity that goes on there is only one of many issues that would be problematic if that were our objective. Our objective is instead to identify the key commercial issues for each use case, and then to discuss the trade-offs to consider. For example, a use case that involves an electrolyzer that's producing hydrogen that's immediately being consumed on site is a different type of circumstance than one that requires transportation. An industrial and a utility scale can be different. The way in which people can access a hub based on their use case can be different. And so what we want to try and do is identify those cases, identify the key issues, develop and discuss those trade-offs. Then what we'll be doing on November 27th is presenting our findings on each of the use cases in a webinar for everybody to be able to hopefully use, consume, benefit from, and hopefully accelerate the rollout of green hydrogen. So let me hand it back to you, Janice. You're on mute. I'm going to go on mute now.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you so much, Tony. Clearly, this is toe in the water. 4 use cases out of literally a limitless number, I think is a pretty good start. So our goal is to be helpful and sufficiently deep so that the work product here and the frameworks that are developed are truly useful for those use cases wherever they're deployed in the country. Now, if this process goes well, we welcome your feedback. We can undertake another set of use cases in the future. But this is a first experiment on this effort, and we will see how it goes. Next slide, please. Over the course of the last 4 years, we've engaged many off-takers, both on the West Coast, on the East Coast. Many of the off-takers shown here have footprints throughout the country. What we learned from our interviews with these off-takers to date as the foundation for both of the hubs that we architected was that there's a lot of appetite and interest in green hydrogen. There's a willingness to move forward, but it has to be assured. We need to have assured supply, and it needs to be at a cost competitive price. So how do we get started? Again, back to the thesis of HyBuild North America, it starts with scalable off-takers getting to precedent agreements to have visibility into really large scale production and the transport and storage needed to achieve that low delivered cost. That's where this work stream comes in, and our hope is to help facilitate some of you on this call, some of those buyers, to get to that precedent agreement much quicker. Next slide. What we'll do in the next 15 minutes is we have a special guest speaker. After that, we'll be leaving some time for our 3 confirmed advisors, and we are recruiting a couple more. So there are more advisors on the way. But our 3 advisors, Sihan, Danny, and Tim, will be inviting you guys to introduce yourselves shortly and to talk about your interest in green hydrogen and how you see this effort, where you'd like to contribute to this effort. But first, we have a special guest speaker today, and if you could go to the next slide, please. Our special guest speaker is Paul Browning, and he's here to talk about lessons learned from contracting ACES Delta. So remember earlier I showed you that picture of my favorite power plant, the Intermountain Power Project, which is a very large coal plant that's getting converted to a green hydrogen turbine. I first met Paul, when was it? Maybe actually it was in 2019. And I'm happy to say that over the years, Paul's been a tremendous inspiration to me personally, the work of the GHC, and is definitely one of my favorite people in the green hydrogen space. At the time I met Paul, he was the CEO and president of Mitsubishi Power Americas and leading this deal. Here is his bio, longer bio for your background, but Paul has since left Mitsubishi and is continuing to be an amazing champion and leader in the green hydrogen space since then, and is here to talk about his lessons learned from that experience, since we are here to talk about how to get these big deals contracted. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Paul. Thank you so much for volunteering to join us today, sharing your experience, and the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thanks, Janice. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, great. Okay, well, and I just want to say Janice is one of my favorite people. I think I actually said that about you first, Janice, in a prior presentation, but I think I ranked you number 2 after Marty Adams from LADWP. So, hey, well, thanks for everybody for bringing me in. I just want to say, Janice said I continue to be in green hydrogen. I've started two new businesses, one called Continuum Renewables, which is a renewable power business, and another energy transition finance that I'll talk about today. That's a finance company. I'm actually on a little bit of a hiatus from green hydrogen right now, and for some different reasons. But anyway, if you go to the next slide, what I would like to talk about is when I was at Mitsubishi, we got the world's first utility scale green hydrogen project to financial close. And went through a lot of first of its kind contracting issues and all the sorts of things that you guys are going to be trying to tackle. So I thought this would just be a good way or good contribution, let's say, to the discussion you're going to have today. If you go to the next slide, please. So this was like circa 2017 at Mitsubishi. We were going through our annual 5-year strategic planning process. And we were noticing that there were some places in the world, with California being one of them, where they had sort of already retired all their coal and oil-based power generation, still had a lot of natural gas on the grid. But we were looking at, California's future was not going to be to add a whole bunch more natural gas to their grid. Their future was going to be around renewables. And we were trying to think about, at our business, which at the time was a coal and natural gas power generation business, what was our future in a place like California? And we came around to the idea that green hydrogen was going to be an important part of our future in places like California. And by the way, at the time, we were in the process of sort of closing down our coal-fired power business and going, a company sort of looking for a path through the energy transition. So what we were scouring, not just North and South America, which was my responsibility at the time, but we were really scouring the whole world with our colleagues in Europe, Africa, the Middle East, Japan, and other locations in Asia, trying to figure out, again, where's the first utility scale project going to get done? And what we were looking for, most importantly, and these are sort of in order of importance, we were looking for a hydrogen off-taker with a sense of urgency and oh, by the way, with a good credit rating and a balance sheet. We were looking for someplace where we could deliver hydrogen, because as many of you know, the infrastructure is just not there right now to pipelines and that sort of thing. We were looking for someplace that was going to have hydrogen storage available. A lot of people were looking for, or thinking about hydrogen as a fuel. I was really encouraging my team to think about hydrogen as a storage technology and electrical storage technology, and think about, and so for that reason, we were looking for the availability and deliverability of storage. Of course, green hydrogen is made from renewable power, so we were looking for renewable power supply and deliverability. And green hydrogen is also made from water, so we were looking for a place where we thought we could get access to water rights. We were really interested in contracting simplicity. We wanted to find a project we thought could actually get done. And oh, it would be nice if we had some synergies with our legacy businesses. And of course, you're always looking for the right partners in something like this. Next slide. What we found in Delta, Utah was pretty much exactly what we were looking for. So the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power was very motivated that they were retiring the last coal-fired power plant that had provided power to the state of California. This is a power plant in Delta, Utah. And this power plant is an absolutely essential part of how LADWP keeps the lights on in Los Angeles. It's a coal-fired power plant that actually ramps up and down every day to follow the renewables peak and trough. And again, LADWP, we just had a high sense of urgency to do something with a city council that had voted 12-0, no more natural gas. The issue of deliverability, we found, what we came around to was, well, let's retire that coal-fired power plant in 2025 and replace it with a combined cycle power plant that can burn hydrogen. So the hydrogen demand would be right on site. And it was Bill Furman at Berkshire Hathaway Energy who actually alerted me to the idea that there's a salt dome right underneath this power plant. Literally, this power plant was built on top of a salt dome, which is exactly the kind of geologic formation that you want to store hydrogen in large quantities. IPA is connected by a 2.4 gigawatt HVDC line to the city of Los Angeles, and has incredible, and an HVDC line can run in both directions. So we have the ability to bring renewable power in to Delta and then also send it back on the same HVDC line. So we had good deliverability of renewables at this site. A coal-fired power plant uses a tremendous amount of water for cooling purposes. A green hydrogen project would use a very small fraction of the water that a coal-fired power plant needs. And since we were on the site of a retiring coal-fired power plant, they had enormous water rights available. Because you see a lot of IPA on the previous points I've made here, we were really interested in the contracting simplicity of this. All the electricity is provided by IPA. All the hydrogen is off-taken by IPA. IPA owns the water rights. They own the HVDC line. We had an opportunity to contract really with a single counterparty on sort of the major ins and outs from this power plant. And from a synergy point of view, we had an opportunity to sell, our gas turbine power island to this long-term service agreement. And we also had project development capabilities at Mitsubishi so that we could utilize. And then finally, from a partnering point of view, we really liked LADWP, and IPA as a credit-worthy, off-taker. Haddington Ventures as a private equity firm that owned the Salt Dome and had years and years of experience in developing Salt Dome projects, which was experience we did not have at Mitsubishi. And we saw an opportunity to work with the DOE Loan Program Office and get some really inexpensive debt with a long tenor. So all of this together was really what got us focused. And I basically told my team, we're all in on this. And I went to my sales leader, Dave Hunt, was an integral part of everything I'm about to talk about, told him this is a must win. And he came back to me the next day and said, I think we need to buy a salt dome. And I had just talked to Bill Furman. I was just sort of coming around to what the hell a salt dome was. And in one of the biggest gambles of my career, went out and bought a portion of the salt dome that Haddington Ventures owned and partnered with them before there was a project at IPA, before all this sort of happened. So next slide, please. Whoops, you went one too many. All right. So, sorry, one more back. There you go. So this is what the project looks like. It's actually 3 projects. On the left is a picture of the retiring coal-fired power plant, and there's going to be a 840 megawatt combined cycle power plant that's going to be built on the site of that retiring coal-fired power plant. In the middle is the advanced clean energy storage project. So where's the hydrogen coming from that's going to power that combined cycle power plant? It's coming from ACES. The power plant, so today's low NOx combustion technology, this is technology that can produce 2 ppm NOx at the stack without water injection. That kind of combustion technology, there is no precedent of using a large amount of hydrogen with that combustion technology. With higher NOx combustion technologies, there's a lot of precedent using high hydrogen contents, but not with the low NOx combustion, which was a requirement for this project. So the project starts out with gas turbines that Mitsubishi developed, their most fuel efficient gas turbines in the world, very flexible, but also have the ability to burn 30% by volume green hydrogen, and the other 70% natural gas. And then we made a commitment at Mitsubishi that we would develop the ability to burn 100% green hydrogen in that same gas turbine in the future. The Advanced Clean Energy Storage Project is the project that produces the hydrogen needed to meet 30% of the fuel needs of Intermountain Power using 220 megawatts of electrolysis. And then it stores it underground in 2 salt caverns that combined have the ability to store 300 gigawatt hours of electrical energy. To put that in context, every lithium-ion battery installed in the world is less than 300 gigawatt hours. So this is just a truly massive amount of energy storage. It's the kind of energy storage that you can use to meet your seasonal storage needs, not just daily needs, which lithium-ion is much better suited for. And then finally, the project on the right is taking that existing HVDC line and doing some upgrades to it. All of this, the first 2 projects are in commercial operation in 2025, the upgrades to the HVDC line coming in 2026. All of this is under construction as we speak, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Next slide, please. So what were some of the contracting and financing challenges with this project, and sort of what were the solutions we came up with? Well, first of all, as a first of a kind, nobody had ever done this before. There was really no precedent. We decided to treat it like a power project. And this is a quote from Dave Hunt when we were in the early days of talking this over. He said, listen, there's goes-indas and there's goes-outas, and we just have to understand what's coming in, what's going out, and contract around that. Let's make it simple. And then our counterparty is an electric utility. Let's give them a contract structure that they're going to be familiar with. Let's not try to do something, whole cloth new. We, from a potential complexity point of view, as I said earlier, we were really happy that we had the same entity providing electricity, providing water, and providing the hydrogen offtake. And so we decided to structure it as a simple tolling agreement with capacity charges and product charges. So, the capacity charges are, getting paid to keep the lights on. The product charges are, getting paid to turn water and electricity into hydrogen. And those are the major financial streams in the way the contract is structured. We thought a lot about who bears the risk. Again, when you're doing something for the first time, and deciding who takes what risks is not straightforward. And we set as our North Star, let's contract risk in a way that reduces the weighted average cost of capital, and makes debt and equity as comfortable as possible with who's bearing which risks. So really put quite a lot of thought into that. And this project has a really smoking hot weighted average cost of capital. This idea, everybody was sort of new to hydrogen, all the counterparties, and we really sort of took this point of view. It's not about the commodity, it's about the deal structure. So don't get too wrapped up in the fact that this is the hydrogen molecule. Let's just focus on the fact, we have things coming in, we have things going out, and this doesn't need to be complex. We were looking at using the DOE for our debt. And the biggest advice I give anybody who's working with the loan programs office is, don't think you're going to change their process. Don't think you're going to get some exceptional treatment. They are governed by some pretty strict laws and regulations. If they say they need something, they need it, and don't argue about it and waste a bunch of time. Just do it. And we really took that approach in working with the LPO. And then with the equity syndicate, our private equity partner, Haddington, was really the lead in putting this syndicate together. And what we were really focused on there is, equity needs to meet a certain return. And if we don't meet that return, we're not going to be able to structure an equity syndicate. So we have to understand that there's a hurdle rate we have to meet, and we have to structure everything around meeting that hurdle rate. Next slide, please. Before I sort of leave this quick topic, I just want to say a lot of people think this is a unicorn project because of all the wonderful things I just talked about with the salt dome right underneath it and all that. We're going to have to build pipelines in the future for a lot of projects that are not sitting right on top of salt domes. I just want to say we shouldn't be afraid of pipelines. And I use this as an example. You know, shale gas sort of hit the screen and right around 2008. And these areas, this is a map of the oil and natural gas pipelines in the United States. These areas that I've circled are, you know, where all of the large shale basins are in the United States. All these pipelines are new since 2008. So in 15 years, we built out what you're looking at in the circles. There's absolutely no reason we can't do the same thing in a bunch of hydrogen hubs over the next 15 years. And you know, shame on us if we don't figure that out. Next slide, please. So when I started my other new business, Continuum Renewables, I had a meeting with Jigger Shaw, who's, you know, I know Jigger really well from getting through the LPO process with the ACES project. It was actually the first project that got done in 10 years, the first project that got done under ACES, or under Jigger's leadership. And I went in to talk to him about my new business. He basically said, you know, I already looked at your slides, looks wonderful, coming back and talk to me when you need a loan. But what I'd like to talk to you about is I now have, the IRA has given me the loan authority to loan out $400 billion. And I have people that are sort of getting stuck in my process. I need somebody to help my, you know, LPO applicants get through the LPO process. So he asked me to think about starting a consultancy that could help companies do that. And so next slide, this is how I started one of my two new companies, Energy Transition Finance. And just really quickly, what we do is, you know, we have not only the expertise, but also like the surge capacity to help you get through the LPO loan process. When I was at Mitsubishi, we had 5 people working full-time for a year to get us through this LPO process. So it's quite an intensive process. What we do at ETF is we have basically a web-based scorecard where you can go in and enter a bunch of information about your project and where you're at on a bunch of, you know, contracting, community outreach, a whole bunch of different factors. Next slide. Once we've got that input from you, we actually in an automated way put together an assessment of your project, and we give you a score. So in this particular case, this applicant has a score of 53, which, you know, means there's still quite a lot to do to meet the requirements of the LPO process. You know, one of the things that the folks at the LPO really can't tell you have an ugly baby. They're prevented from turning anybody away. We have the ability to, we won't tell you have an ugly baby. We can have the ability to tell you have a very low score, and there's quite a lot of work to do if you want to get through their process. And we can show you, you know, where you're ahead and where you're behind. Next slide. And then we can take you through all the processes of getting through the LPO loan process. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but it is quite a process to get through. Next slide. And if you want to utilize this, we actually have a free assessment tool online using the web address you see here. And you can go there, enter a bunch of information, including you can sign an NDA with us, and we'll provide you an assessment score for free so that you can sort of see where you're at in your LPO process. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul. Your experience and lessons learned on that project are invaluable, and it's quite the story. Appreciate it. So hopefully at this point in the conversation, we've sufficiently covered the tremendous potential and value that this initiative has. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Thank you. If so, we want you to join us so that it has the robust engagement necessary to benefit each segment of the economy that hydrogen can play a role meeting decarbonization goals. If you're a current supporter, please use the link in this slide to access the donor portal and set up today. That link will also be posted in the chat. And for those companies who are with us here, who are in our buyers advisory board, Our main point of contact with your company has already received an invitation to join this process. But nonetheless, if your company is thinking about procuring hydrogen at any scale, please go ahead, reach out to me. My email address is at the bottom of the slide, and I'd be happy to walk you through any questions that you may have or issues that you may want to discuss. Next slide, please. So once we hear from you, I'll begin the process of scheduling time with Tony's team to get an interview set up with his and our folks. But really, we welcome anyone who's interested in hydrogen's potential to join our community. We offer monthly momentum calls to share updates on the latest developments within our space and to help coordinate on how to best advocate for the clean hydrogen future that we all want. So like this work stream, we have a variety of initiatives underway to develop the policy and regulatory structure needed to enable market liftoff. In my opinion, of all the initiatives that we have going on, that we've undertaken, the crown jewel is the Western Green Hydrogen Initiative, which brings together state energy offices, regulators from Wyoming, Colorado, Washington, California, across the West, each of their own political stripe to discuss the unique perspectives, challenges their state are tackling, all to create their own unique hydrogen programs. So for more about membership, or if you'd like to just know more about us, the HyBuild platform, the WGHI, or any of our initiatives, please reach out to Jackie at the bottom of this slide, and she will be happy to get you in touch with the right people and set up a time to chat. Next slide, please. So we've heard from Tony, and go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And Janice has introduced this distinguished group of folks once already, but I wanted to give an overview of the other advisors to this initiative. Si-Hung Yuan, Senior Program Officer with the World Wildlife Fund. Danny Seagraves, Danny, Senior Managing Partner with Brown & Brown, a international insurance brokerage. And Tim Berry, Director of Strategy and Commercial and Operational Excellence with Rumble, an international architecture, engineering, and consultancy company. Janice noted that we're still in the process of selecting advisors for this work stream, and we plan on including at least one financial investment firm, but if anybody in the audience today would be a fit or they're interested in playing a role, becoming an advisor is another great way to get involved and plug into this important work. So with that, Danny, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself. Thanks very much.
Hey guys, thanks for the opportunity to participate. Janice, thanks for all the hard work you've done for the last 2 years. And for those of you who have not heard Janice speak in more detail, you should take the opportunity to find where she's speaking. She does a phenomenal fact-based presentation of the industry, where it's been, where it is, where it's going. As we look at the industry, you talked about the projects that are currently being announced. We're involved with about 4 of them. Everything is in the billions of dollars. And while it's not purely new technologies into different components, when you pull these pieces together, it is new. And anytime there's new, there's risk. Risk is not good or bad. It's just you understand it. And as Paul so eloquently stated earlier, the degree to which you control the risk contractually and eliminate the uncertainty, start driving down capital costs. And that's the goal of all this effort, is to accelerate the hydrogen economy and do it as quickly and as cost effectively as possible. And I'm just thrilled to be a part of the work stream.
Great. Thank you very much, Danny. I will next turn to Si-Hung. Si-Hung, would you like to say a few words?
Thanks, Joe. Hi, everyone. I'm Si-Hung Yuan with WWF. We're one of the co-conveners of the Renewable Thermal Collaborative, ODRTC, together with the Center for Climate Energy Solutions and David Gardner Associates. RTC is a global buyers-driven coalition focused on scaling the use of renewable energy for heating and cooling. So on the slide here, you can see our RTC members and sponsors. So our members would be large energy buyers from a diverse range of industries, including like food and beverage, pharmaceutical, consumer goods, paper, healthcare, etc. We also have sponsors or solution providers of various renewable thermal technologies. And I lead the green hydrogen work for DRTC. As many of you on this webinar know, green hydrogen is a very critical solution for decarbonizing industrial process heat, especially high temperature processes. And we've been working with our members and sponsors in building knowledge about this technology, identifying joint actions to accelerate the deployment. We actually recently released a report in April evaluating the potential and barriers for deploying green hydrogen for industrial process heat. And one of the key takeaways from that report is actually that innovative procurement options will be key in unlocking and accelerating this very nascent market. And the contract workstream here is providing exactly the tools and support that buyers need to unlock those innovative procurement options. So I'm very excited about this work and look forward to what we can accomplish together.
We are too. Thank you very much, Seong. And lastly, I will turn it over to Tim. Tim?
Yeah.
You wouldn't mind coming on?
Well, in the interest of time, I'll just be brief, but I just start by saying, you know, I was definitely inspired by Paul's story. And Paul, while I would not call it a unicorn, I just don't know how many more of those sites we're going to find during this process, but also inspired about the thinking on the pipelines. We would agree with that perspective. So clearly these large complex programs, you know, with numerous stakeholders are very difficult to pull off, and putting all the pieces together and getting all the stakeholders on board with their respective share of the risk and reward balance is absolutely no easy task. But at Ramboll, you know, we specialize in planning, designing, building and starting up these large complex programs, also facilitating the stakeholders' engagement. And that, particularly within renewables, waste energy, electrification, green hydrogen, and power to X. And you know, our view on these technologies and these programs is that they're essential, you know, to create a more clean and sustainable future. So I'm, you know, very much looking forward to working with my fellow panelists on defining the strategies to enable other use cases that might be a little less straightforward than the one Paul overviewed, but bringing these other use cases, giving a roadmap to bring them to life. It's very important for us, and happy to be part of the panel.
Thanks so much, Tim. And with that, we can move forward. And Janice, I will turn it back over to you really quickly. We have a few questions in the chat, and I can start with the first one. This question is for Paul, I believe. What were the upgrades required to the HVDC line? And Janice, I will leave it there for you to continue. Thanks.
Yeah, I forgot to mention as I presented this, the HVDC project was the one project that I was really not involved in. You know, I was very involved in the power project and the ACES hydrogen project, and I really am not much of an expert on HVDC, so unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to answer your question.
Thanks for the question, Steve. Thanks, everyone, and thank you to all our advisors, Danny, Si Hong, Tim. Really appreciate your help. I did want to mention that, especially industrial heat applications, it's very challenging to create a value proposition. What we've been talking about in HyBuild LA and our effort in the Carolinas was a perspective on how to drive down costs, right, through scale and aggregating demand in targeted locations. But I do want to remind everyone that there is an opportunity to create a value proposition by focusing on the benefit side of the equation. As you know, the GHC does a lot of policy and regulatory innovation work, and our hypothesis is that there's much work to be done on the benefit side. And so through the course of this project and the interviews that we'll be undertaking with the Shepard Mullen team in talking to the buyers, our hope is to uncover some opportunities to work together to implement market reforms that can ensure that we can capture and monetize and recognize the benefits of green hydrogen and its derivative fuels. So I just want to point that out. The other thing I wanted to say is, and Tim, thank you for your participation. I love it that Ramboll is a Danish company. Last year, the GHC formed a partnership with the country of Denmark, the Danish Foreign Ministry, and Denmark is an incredible little country, but incredibly advanced when it comes to green hydrogen and the clean energy transition. And they are working with us and sponsoring a delegation of California policymakers and elected leaders to go to Denmark in October. So we're very excited about that opportunity and to see some of this infrastructure already installed and in action. So with that, I want to just check the question line. I see a question here, but I'm not really sure what the question is from Cassie. We're based in Yuma County, Arizona.
She was looking for, I believe she was looking for the dial-in info, which we've taken care of. We did have a question from an attendee asking about, and I'm not sure that we're going to know the answer to this, but asking about any events at Climate Week in New York that are coming up. And I'll maybe pose that to all of the speakers on today's call. If anyone knows of anything that would be relevant and worth attending, they can answer that question, but
yes,
not sure.
I'll actually be at Climate Week on September 20th, I believe, which is a Wednesday. There's a side event organized by a Danish nonprofit, and it's the World Energy Transition Conference on the afternoon. And happy to send, I don't have that information at my fingertips, but there is I'll be participating on a panel about how to accelerate renewable and green hydrogen ecosystems. And actually the Chief Operating Officer of DOE's OSED is on the panel. We have an investor from Denmark, and the World Resources Institute is moderating. It'd be a great event, and happy to send that information after today's webinar.
We have a question from an audience member asking, my company is a startup hydrogen company. What would you suggest we do and who to contact to get involved in California?
I think that's a super easy question. Contact Joel and Jackie. For those of you who are interested in green hydrogen, renewable hydrogen broadly, you participate in the GHC, get plugged in. As Joel mentioned earlier, we have a monthly momentum call. It lasts between 60 and 90 minutes that gives you a comprehensive overview of everything going on in green hydrogen, not only in depth here in California. GHC is deeply involved on legislative and regulatory matters, but also in other states and federally too. Joel helps us track federal developments, and typically at our monthly meetings, we have a guest speaker as well. So it's an opportunity to stay plugged in and also learn something new and learn from each other.
I think that was the question. I think they were saying they were from Yuma, Arizona. I misread that one. Okay. But yeah, and I'd also note if we have a rate for startups, which is discounted, and if you do wish to join, you have an opportunity to present your company at momentum calls.
Yeah, I'd also encourage you to consider attending our annual conference in December in Long Beach. This is a unique conference in that it is specifically designed to accelerate momentum. It covers all production pathways of renewable hydrogen, transport and storage innovation, as well as deep dives into specific end use cases, especially the really hard to electrify ones. There's also going to be site tours, and we're adding a couple more this year. We'll have a site tour of Phoenix Marine Services and a lot of implementation of diesel, replacing diesel with hydrogen-powered fuel cell top handlers. There's a mobile refueler. We're going to be visiting a Trigen facility at the Port of Long Beach, and there's at least 1 or 2 other locations that are just being finalized. Additionally, there's likely going to be an opportunity for equipment display right at the venue itself, so you can see some of this equipment firsthand. Okay, any other questions?
Should be very cool.
Yeah, any other questions for any of our panelists today? All right, well, with that, I think that this can be a wrap. Oh, yeah, let's go back to this previous slide, Vicki. Just, we have lots of resources. Even if you choose not to join the GHG community, we have lots of stuff that's in the public domain. Webinar and the PowerPoint will be shared on our website in 30 hours. You can download a bunch of other information, and we have a number of educational videos that I recommend that you check out, including a recent documentary we just shot at the Port of LA, the International Longshore and Warehousing Union. As I mentioned earlier, lots more detail about our HyBuild LA report. You can sign up for our newsletter, and definitely hope to see you in Long Beach in December. We do close out all of our webinars with a quick survey, so really appreciate it if you could take 20 seconds to fill out our final survey, and look forward to working with all of you on this upcoming initiative this fall.
Thanks very much, Janice. Thank you to all of our panelists and all of our attendees. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.